Harrison. It's a federal crime. I felt nauseous. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know any of this. I believe you. That's why I'm here. We need your cooperation. We need documentation of every transfer you made to your son in the past 2 years. Dates, amounts, purposes, and we need to know if he coerced you in any way or made false claims about why he needed the money. I thought of all the lies, the student loans that probably didn't exist, the medical bills that were never shown to me, the renovations I'd never seen. He lied, I said. About everything. Detective Morris nodded. We suspected. Mrs. Harrison, I need to ask, did you recently close several accounts that your son had access to? Yes. This week. That probably saved you from losing a lot more. The trustee would have seized any joint assets. Your son may have been planning to drain those accounts before they were discovered. The betrayal cut deeper. It wasn't just greed. It was calculated theft. What happens now? I asked. We continue our investigation. We may need you to testify if it goes to trial. In the meantime, I strongly suggest you cut all financial ties with your son and his wife. Don't accept calls asking for money. Don't agree to any loans or gifts. Document everything. He stood to leave, then paused at the door. Mrs. Harrison, you did nothing wrong here. Parents want to help their children. That's normal. Your son exploited that. This is on him, not you. After he left, I sat in silence for a long time. Monday afternoon, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Carol standing there alone, holding a small wrapped gift. I didn't open the door. Margaret? Her voice was soft, pleading. I know you're in there. Please, I just want to talk. Silence. I brought you a peace offering, your favorite chocolates. I'm so sorry about everything. Brad is sorry too. We were stressed, and we said things we didn't mean. Please, can we just talk? I stood on the other side of the door, watching her through the peephole. We miss you, she continued. Brad has been miserable all weekend. He loves you so much, Margaret. You're his mom. Don't let one bad text message ruin everything. Family forgives. That's what family does. The manipulation was so obvious now. The soft voice, the gift, the appeal to family loyalty. I said nothing. After 5 minutes, Carol's expression changed. The sweetness drained away, replaced by frustration. She set the gift down roughly on the porch and left. I watched her car disappear, then opened the door and picked up the box. The chocolates were cheap grocery store brand, not the expensive ones she claimed were my favorite. She hadn't even tried. Tuesday, I met Helen and 2 other friends from the library, Susan and Dorothy, for lunch. I'd been debating whether to tell them anything, but Helen had already guessed something was wrong. Out with it, she said once we'd ordered. You've been like a ghost. So I told them. Not everything, not the detective or the fraud investigation, but enough. The money, the cruel message, the confrontation. They were silent for a moment. Then Dorothy reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You did the right thing. Did I? He's my son, and you're his mother, Susan said firmly. That doesn't mean he gets to treat you like garbage. My daughter tried something similar 5 years ago. Not this bad, but similar. You know what I did? I cut her off completely. Best decision I ever made. She got her life together eventually, came back and apologized. But she had to hit bottom first. What if Brad doesn't come back? I whispered. Helen's voice was gentle. Then he doesn't. Margaret, you can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, not even your child. You deserve respect. You deserve kindness. If Brad can't give you that, then he doesn't deserve your money or your time. Something in me broke open then. I started crying, right there in the restaurant, and my friends surrounded me. They didn't judge. They didn't tell me to forgive him. They just held me. "You're not alone," Dorothy said. "We're here. Whatever you need." For the first time in days, I believed her. Wednesday evening, a week before Christmas, they came back together. I was decorating my small tree, a modest 3-footer I'd bought for myself, when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw both of them standing on the porch. Brad looked tired. Carol looked determined. I considered not answering. But something told me this confrontation was inevitable. Better to face it now, on my terms. I opened the door but stood in the doorway, blocking entry. "Mom," Brad said quickly, "please, just hear us out. 5 minutes. That's all we're asking." "You have 5 minutes. Out here." Carol's lips thinned, but she nodded. "Fine. Margaret, we came to apologize. Sincerely apologize. We were out of line. The text message was cruel. The way we've been treating you was wrong. We see that now." She sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced this speech in the car. "Go on," I said neutrally. Brad took over. "Mom, we've been under incredible stress. Financial stress. I didn't want to burden you with our problems, so I tried to handle it myself. But I handled it badly. I took your generosity for granted. I wasn't there for you when you needed me." "And?" I prompted. They exchanged a glance. "And we want to make it right," Carol said. "We want to start over. Clean slate. We'll come for Christmas. We'll spend the whole day with you. We'll even help you decorate." "In exchange for what?" Carol blinked. "What? What do you want in exchange? Because this doesn't sound like an apology. It sounds like a negotiation." Brad's face reddened. "Mom, that's not fair. We're trying." "You're trying to get access to my money again," I said calmly. "That's what this is about. You realize the accounts are closed and you need them reopened." "That's not," Carol started. "I spoke to Detective Morris." The effect was immediate. Brad went pale. Carol's eyes widened. "You talked to the police?" Brad whispered. "They contacted me about your bankruptcy fraud investigation, about the $600,000 in debt you never mentioned, about how you've been lying to the bankruptcy court." "Mom, I can explain." "Can you? Can you explain why you told the court you had no family assets while you were draining my accounts? Can you explain why you took money from me under false pretenses? Can you explain?" "We were desperate." Carol's voice cracked, the calm facade shattering. "Do you have any idea what it's like? The creditors calling every day? The threats of foreclosure? We were drowning, Margaret. We needed help. So you lied to me. We did what we had to do." I looked at my son. He was staring at the ground, his hands clenched into fists. "Brad," I said quietly. "Look at me." He did. There were tears in his eyes now. "Did you ever love me? Or was I just a bank account to you?" "Mom, of course I love you." "Then why?" My voice broke. "Why did you treat me like I was nothing?" "I didn't mean—" He choked on the words. "I was ashamed. I didn't want you to know how badly I'd screwed up. So I took your money, and I told myself it was temporary, that I'd pay you back once we got back on our feet. But then things got worse, and I needed more, and He stopped. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom." For a moment, I almost believed him, almost reached out to comfort him, but then Carol spoke. "This is all very touching, but can we focus on the actual problem? Margaret, if you testify against Brad, he could go to prison, federal prison. Is that what you want? To destroy your own son's life?" The manipulation was so naked, so obvious. "I didn't destroy anything," I said. "Brad did. By lying, by committing fraud. He's your son. And he's an adult who made choices, bad choices. Now he has to face the consequences." Carol stepped forward, her face twisted with anger. "You selfish bitch! You're sitting on Robert's whole fortune while we're losing everything, and you won't even get off my property." My voice was ice. Both of you. Now! We're not finished. Yes, you are. If you're not gone in 10 seconds, I'm calling the police. Carol looked like she wanted to hit me. Brad grabbed her arm, pulling her back. Let's go, he said quietly. Brad, I said let's go. They left. Carol was still arguing with him as they got into the car. I watched them drive away, my whole body trembling. When they were gone, I closed the door and locked it. Then I checked every window, every lock, my heart pounding. They'd shown their true faces tonight. The masks were gone. Carol's rage. Brad's weak attempts to manipulate through guilt. I wasn't safe. Not while they were desperate. I picked up my phone and called Detective Morris. Left a voicemail describing the visit, their threats, everything. Then I called Patricia Thornton. They came to your house? She asked sharply. After everything? Yes. Margaret, I want you to file for a restraining order. Tomorrow. First thing. That seems extreme. They threatened you. They're under federal investigation. They're desperate and angry. This is when people become dangerous. Please, do this for me, for yourself. I agreed. That night I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. Every car that passed made me check the windows. But underneath the fear was something else. Resolve. I would not back down. I would not let them win. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for the Monday before Christmas. I sat in the courtroom with Patricia beside me, my hands folded in my lap, watching Brad and Carol enter with their attorney, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit who immediately tried to negotiate a delay. The judge, a gray-haired woman named Rodriguez, was having none of it. We're here. Everyone's present. We're proceeding. Mrs. Harrison, you may present your case. Patricia stood. Your Honor, my client is seeking protection from her son and daughter-in-law due to a pattern of financial exploitation, harassment, and threats that escalated significantly in the past 2 weeks. She walked the judge through everything. The documented transfers totaling $87,000, the closed accounts, the cruel text message, the confrontation on my porch, the threatening visit last Wednesday. Mrs. Harrison has also been contacted by federal authorities investigating bankruptcy fraud allegations against her son, Patricia concluded. The respondents are desperate and have demonstrated they will use intimidation to regain access to her finances. Brad's attorney stood. Your Honor, this is a family disagreement being blown out of proportion. Mr. Harrison acknowledges the relationship has been strained, but he denies any threats or harassment. He loves his mother. He simply wants to reconcile. Is that so? Judge Rodriguez looked at Brad. Mr. Harrison, did you send your mother a text message saying, and I quote, "They matter more than you do"? Brad shifted uncomfortably. Yes, Your Honor, but I was upset. I didn't mean... Did you accept approximately $87,000 from your mother over 18 months? She offered to help. Did you repay any of it? Silence. Mr. Harrison, did you file for bankruptcy 7 months ago? Yes, but... Did you report the money you received from your mother to the bankruptcy court? His attorney touched his arm, but Brad was already answering. No, but I didn't think I had to. It was a gift, not a loan. A gift you now claim to have a right to? The judge's voice was sharp. A gift you confronted your mother about when she closed her own accounts? Carol leaned forward suddenly. Your Honor, may I speak? The judge looked surprised, but nodded. Go ahead, Mrs. Harrison. Margaret is being vindictive, Carol said, her voice shaking with emotion. She's upset that we chose to spend Christmas with my family instead of her. This whole thing is revenge. She wants to punish us for having our own lives. She's using the legal system to... Mrs. Harrison, the judge interrupted, did you tell your mother-in-law that your parents matter more than she does? Carol hesitated. I didn't write that message. But you were aware of it? Brad was frustrated. He shouldn't have said it like that, but Did you visit Mrs. Harrison's home last Wednesday evening? Yes, to apologize. And did you, during that visit, call her a selfish bitch? Carol's face went white. That was taken out of context. Did you or did you not use those words? Yes. The courtroom was silent. Judge Rodriguez looked at me. Mrs. Harrison, would you like to add anything? I stood, my voice steady. Your Honor, I loved my son. I gave him everything I could. I supported him his entire life. When he needed money, I gave it. When he needed help, I offered it. I never asked for anything in return except respect and honesty. I looked at Brad. He was staring at the table. He couldn't give me even that. He lied. He manipulated. He took advantage of my love. And when I finally protected myself, he and his wife came to my home twice to threaten and intimidate me. I don't want to punish him, Your Honor. I want to be safe. Thank you, Mrs. Harrison. The judge reviewed her notes. Based on the evidence presented and the testimony given, I'm granting the restraining order. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison are prohibited from contacting Margaret Harrison directly or indirectly for a period of 1 year. They must stay at least 500 feet away from her home, workplace, and vehicle. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. The gavel came down. Brad's head dropped into his hands. Carol let out a sound halfway between a gasp and a sob. Their attorney was already standing, talking about appeals. But I wasn't listening. It was done. I stood and walked out of the courtroom, Patricia beside me. In the hallway, I finally let myself breathe. You did beautifully in there, Patricia said. I just told the truth. The truth is powerful, especially against lies. Behind us, I heard raised voices. Carol and Brad arguing with their attorney. Something about money for the appeal. Money they didn't have. I kept walking. Outside, the winter air was cold and clean. The courthouse steps were empty, except for a few people hurrying past. Christmas decorations hung from every lamppost, reminders of the holiday I'd be spending alone. But I wasn't sad. I was free. My phone buzzed. A text from Helen. How did it go? I smiled and texted back. I won. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, dinner at my place tonight. We're celebrating. I looked back at the courthouse one last time. Through the glass doors, I could see Brad and Carol still arguing, their faces tight with anger and desperation. I'd spent 34 years loving my son, sacrificing for him, trying to give him the best life possible, and he'd repaid me with lies and exploitation. But no more. I turned and walked toward my car, my head high. The battle was over. I'd won. 3 weeks later, on a cold January morning, I sat in Patricia's office again. This time, the news wasn't about protection. It was about justice. The federal prosecutor has formally charged Brad with bankruptcy fraud, Patricia said, sliding documents across her desk. 3 counts. If convicted, he's looking at up to 5 years in prison and substantial fines. I absorbed this in silence. 5 years. What about Carol? I asked. She's named as a co-conspirator, but she's cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for immunity. Essentially, she's testifying against Brad. Of course she was. When things got hard, Carol looked out for herself. There's more, Patricia continued. The bankruptcy trustee has seized their house. They're being evicted next month. The court has also frozen all their remaining assets pending the criminal investigation. They have nothing, Margaret. They're completely broke. I should have felt something. Sympathy, regret, some maternal instinct to help. But I felt only a cold, clear certainty that this was justice. Brad tried to contact you last week, Patricia added, 4 times through intermediaries, his lawyer, Carol's mother, even a friend from his college, all asking if you would consider helping with his legal fees. What did you tell them? That you have a restraining order and any further attempts to contact you would be reported to the police. They've stopped. Good. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Margaret, I've handled a lot of family cases. This one is unusual because you held firm. Most parents in your position eventually cave. They pay the legal fees. They bail out their kids one more time. You didn't. Should I have? No. Her voice was emphatic. What Brad did wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated pattern of abuse. He deserves to face the consequences, and you deserve to live your life without that weight. February brought more news through Helen, who heard it from her hairdresser, who heard it from Carol's sister. Carol had filed for divorce. She'd moved back in with her parents, leaving Brad to face the legal proceedings alone. She'd given an interview to a local news website about escaping a toxic marriage and being manipulated by her husband. She portrayed herself as another victim. Brad, meanwhile, was living in a cheap apartment on the east side of town, working 2 jobs to pay for a public defender, since he could no longer afford private counsel. His trial date was set for April. In March, I ran into Carol's mother at the grocery store. She pretended not to see me at first, but I walked directly up to her cart. "Hello, Linda." She looked startled, then uncomfortable. "Margaret, I didn't know you shopped here." "I've shopped here for 30 years. We stood there awkwardly for a moment. Finally, Linda spoke. "Carol told me what happened. Her side, anyway. She said Brad took advantage of you." "He did." "She also said you refused to help him with his legal fees." "That's correct." Linda's expression hardened. "He's your son, Margaret. How can you stand by and watch him lose everything?" I met her gaze steadily. "He took everything from me first. My money, my trust, my dignity. He made his choices, Linda. Now he's living with them." "You're heartless." "No," I said quietly. "I'm finally putting myself first." I walked away, leaving her standing there. Brad's trial lasted 3 days in April. I didn't attend, but Patricia went and gave me daily updates. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, emails where Brad discussed hiding assets, testimony from the bankruptcy trustee. Even Carol testified, describing conversations where Brad had explicitly talked about using his mother's money without reporting it. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 3 years in federal prison with credit for time served. He'd be eligible for parole in 18 months if he showed good behavior and paid restitution. Restitution he didn't have. When Patricia told me, I sat quietly for a long moment. "How do you feel?" she asked gently. "Like it's over," I said. "Finally over." In May, I received a letter from Brad. It had been forwarded through Patricia, who'd reviewed it first to make sure it didn't violate the restraining order. It was 7 pages long, handwritten on yellow legal paper. He apologized. He explained. He detailed the gambling addiction that had started small and spiraled out of control. The debts that mounted. The panic. The lies. The way Carol had pushed him to ask me for more, always more. He blamed himself. He blamed Carol. He blamed his addiction. At the end, he asked for forgiveness. Not money, not help, just forgiveness. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and didn't respond. Maybe someday I would forgive him. Maybe someday I'd visit him in prison. But not today. Today, I was healing. I was rebuilding my life without him. And that was enough. Summer came to my little town with bright, golden warmth. I woke each morning to birdsong and coffee on my porch, watching the neighborhood come alive. My life had changed in ways I hadn't expected. Helen had introduced me to her book club, and I'd fallen in love with the group of women who gathered every Thursday evening to discuss novels and drink wine. They were smart, funny, irreverent. They made me laugh until my sides hurt. Susan had convinced me to volunteer at the local women's shelter, helping residents with financial literacy classes, teaching them about budgets, savings, recognizing financial abuse. I found purpose in it. helping others avoid what I'd experienced. Dorothy and I had started taking watercolor classes together on Saturday mornings. I wasn't very good, but I didn't care. It was peaceful, meditative. In June, I took a trip to Maine that I'd been putting off for years. 5 days in a coastal cottage, reading and walking on the beach. I went alone and loved every minute of it. I started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee with a retired teacher named Frank, who made me laugh and never asked about my son. It was nice to feel wanted for myself, not my money. My house felt different now, lighter. I'd redecorated the guest room that had always been Brad's room into an art studio. I'd donated his childhood things that I'd been hoarding. I'd made the space mine. The restraining order was still in effect. Brad hadn't violated it. I heard nothing from him directly, but I heard about him. Through the small town grapevine, news filtered back. Brad had been transferred to a minimum security federal facility 3 hours away. He was working in the prison library, trying to stay out of trouble. Carol had moved to Arizona with a new boyfriend, posting photos on social media of resort pools and expensive dinners. But Helen's hairdresser's sister worked at that resort. Carol was actually a cocktail waitress, barely scraping by. The wealthy boyfriend was a lie. When Linda ran into Helen at the pharmacy, she looked 10 years older. "Carol won't speak to us anymore," she said quietly. "After she testified against Brad, she cut us all off." Helen had relayed this to me with raised eyebrows. Karma. In August, I received another letter from Brad. Shorter this time. "Mom, I don't expect you to respond. I just wanted you to know I've been sober for 6 months. I'm attending GA meetings here. I'm working on myself. I understand now what I did to you. Not just the money, the trust, the love. I was a terrible son. You deserved better. I hope you're happy, Mom. Love, Brad." I folded the letter carefully and put it with the first one. They stayed in the drawer, unacknowledged. September brought my 69th birthday. Helen threw me a surprise party. Just my book club and neighbors, cake and champagne in her backyard. They gave me silly gifts. A t-shirt that said, "Nevertheless," she persisted. A coffee mug with "World's Okayest Painter." A gift certificate for the art supply store. I laughed until I cried. That night, sitting alone on my porch with wine, I thought about the past year. I'd lost my son, yes, but I'd gained myself back. I'd learned that love shouldn't cost everything, that boundaries weren't selfish, that protecting yourself wasn't giving up. I'd learned that family wasn't always blood. Sometimes family was Helen showing up with soup, Susan texting me funny memes, Dorothy making me laugh in art class. I'd learned that I was stronger than I'd known. In October, Carol was arrested in Arizona for writing bad checks, multiple counts. She'd been running up bills all over town, writing checks from closed accounts. She'd made bail but was facing prosecution. Her expensive lawyer wasn't returning her calls. History repeating itself. I felt nothing when I heard. No satisfaction, no pity. Just nothing. In November, Brad's parole officer called. Brad would be released in December, 2 months early for good behavior. "He's asked permission to write you one more letter," the officer said, "to let you know his release plans and assure you he won't be returning to this area. He's moving to Ohio to live with his father's brother." The letter came a week later. Just facts. His release date. His uncle's address in Cleveland. His intention to stay far away. "I won't bother you anymore, Mom. I promise. You can live your life without worrying about me showing up. I'm sorry. For everything. Please be happy." I read it once and put it with the others. Then I closed the drawer and went to meet Helen for lunch. My life was full, my heart was healing, and I was finally happy. So here I am, nearly 70 years old, living proof that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. I learned that love without respect is manipulation, that family doesn't give you the right to take advantage, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say no to the people you love most. My son made his choices. I made mine. I don't regret protecting myself. What would you have done? Would you have kept giving, or would you have drawn the line? Think about it. And if someone in your life is treating you like an ATM instead of a person, family or not, maybe it's time to close those accounts. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there find their own strength. Take care of yourselves. You deserve it.